Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Hope everyone is doing fine. Give everyone a few minutes to get in here. Hey, Channel Surfer, how are you? Hope you're having a good day. And I want to go ahead and say hello to everyone who will be catching this on the replay. I know it's kind of early in the afternoon, early for my viewers anyway. A lot of my viewers are late night, wee hours of the morning viewers. So I definitely want to say hello to everyone that will be catching this on the replay. Hey, Bob. Hey, Debbie. Hey, New Orleans lady. Hey, Oreo. Glad you finally caught me there. Hope everyone's having a great day. Run across a very interesting article. But before I just jump right into Kieli, I want to acknowledge that I was very busy yesterday and I did not get around to saying anything about Summer on her 14-month missing date. And I'm real sorry about that, and I apologize to my viewers. And I will do something for her. There's just been no new information on Summer. And it's just kind of recycled information on Jody Sue. I put out all the information that I had about the court hearings that could be released on the boys. And I am, to be frank and honest, I am just so tired of putting out Jody Sue. I need a couple of days break from that train wreck. It's hard to focus on Summer and what we can do for her when it seems like all the attention is falling on a no good of a drug dealer who more than likely helped Summer get into the position that she fell into. Hey, Miss Hattie, how are you? And I seen someone say over in Justice for All a few minutes ago that the Sammy girl was going to go live here very soon. And the Sammy girl needs to step lightly where she's speaking because she's very young. And as we've seen in the Suzanne Morphew case and with Barry Morphew, sometimes these GPS trackers and these black box recorders and OnStar, they can jump up and they can bite you in the butt. All these times that she said that they went to the car to charge the phone, every time she said they went to the car to refill the cups, that car was equipped to record every time those doors opened and closed on that car. That car is equipped to record every time the door's unlocked, every time a button was pushed. And I don't know if the girl has sense enough to just stop and think about what she's saying. But something, in my opinion, something occurred at 12:30 to cause just an exodus of vehicles to exit that campground at around 12:30. But I ran across this very interesting article when I was looking up the GPS systems on these Honda CRVs. And you have not much privacy when it comes to these Hondas at all. There's very little that they can't do. But this article goes on to say, it says, under the latest terms and conditions, OnStar will aggregate the data collected to protect user privacy. But that's likely to be a temporary situation. Language in the new terms and conditions could allow OnStar to sell your specific data to municipalities and companies who specialize in targeted marketing. Subscribe to the OnStar telematics system. Chances are good that you ignored a recent email about changes to terms and conditions. If you haven't already binned the email, we suggest you read it carefully. As the New York Times points out, the changes could have a dramatic impact on your privacy behind the wheel. Two changes to the terms and conditions are significant. First, canceling the OnStar service no longer means the termination of two-way communication between your vehicle and OnStar. In other words, even if you're not paying for OnStar, the service is still collecting GPS data from your vehicle. Which brings me to the second change. The data that OnStar collects from your vehicle can be sold to third-party companies expressing interest. What data can OnStar collect and sell? How about the information on vehicle speed and location, current odometer reading, seatbelt usage, and deployment of any vehicle airbags? So even if they had stopped paying for certain services, and OnStar is not the only company that is doing this. Many companies has caught on to this since this article has been released. Other GPS companies on vehicles have started doing this. So even if they have stopped paying for service, there are companies that come in and they buy that. And then when situations like this come up, they gladly sell it to law enforcement. They gladly sell it to whoever needs it or wants it. That's something that maybe Donald Wells ought to be considering about Starlink too. Is even though he may have not been paying for Starlink, somebody was paying for it and somebody was getting it. Well, the car is also equipped with a black box. It's just a matter of getting that warrant over to who they need to get it to, since they do not have the actual car to plug and play. They're saying that Honda CRVs are one of the most easily recovered stolen cars there is because of the GPS systems that's on these cars. They are one of the most commonly pulled cars from shipping containers because it's equipped with the low jack systems. So it is just a matter of time. And they're saying a hacker cannot disable this without internet service. And once they turn on internet service to do anything to that car, it throws a signal up and they're caught anyway. So I agree with you there, Bob. Bob says, I can't believe in 2022 that they can't track down all cars because they can ping phones and know if you're in a certain area. I agree with that. I heard somebody say earlier today, well, I thought that all new iPhones could be pinged regardless if location was turned off or not. That's not true. And even if you have location on, there's also another button on it under privacy to where you have to have precise location turned on. It's not just location services, but precise location. That is the only way. I've got to have my precise location on for it to give exactly the address where I'm at. On the brand new iPhones, I can have my location services on and it will tell you within, a certain radius of where I'm at. But for it to give an exact address of where I am, I've got to have precise location turned on. But my thing is they're saying the phone won't ping underwater. I don't buy that ping would not, or that phone would not ping underwater for a certain amount of time. I have dropped my new iPhone in water and pulled it out, and it'd be perfectly okay. I would only have to dry it out to be able to charge it through the charging port, and it dried out just fine. The new iPhones are the best phones I've ever seen about being not waterproof, but water resistant. If in fact her phone was an iPhone. And if she was in that 75-foot deep part of that water, wouldn't her car hold air for a certain amount of time before it actually settled to the bottom and the car filled up with air or water? Wouldn't it still ping for a certain amount of time before that phone got too wet to ping? I mean, this is just some questions that's went through my mind. If she had AirPods, Apple AirPods on her, they have been known to track people through their AirPods now, their earbuds. Those will also give off a ping as well. And I don't know a teenager nowadays that do not own a pair of Apple earbuds. I am hearing that there was like a 40-year-old man that showed up there, or a man in his 40s. There's two explanations for that. Somebody OD'd or blacked out. A fight happened, something happened, and somebody called a parent in. And that 40-year-old was a parent. And that situation was handled by that parent. And all those kids were told to keep their mouths shut. Or this party was put out on social media, and it was just a perfect breeding ground for predators. And that 40-year-old person could have been a predator. But how she could have been targeted in a group of 300 people and for nobody to have seen nothing, I don't buy that. Ryan Upchurch has put a Hellcat up as a reward on top of a $75,000 reward that was already offered, and I believe they've upped it since then. I think the reward is somewhere around $95,000. So value-wise, I would be somewhere upwards around $200,000 reward just to come forward and tell what happened and where she's at. Nobody has yet to come forward and get this Hellcat and get this $75,000, $80,000 reward. And there's one explanation for that. Nobody can come forward and claim that because they're involved with it, or they feel that they are involved with it. Give me one good explanation why a teenager between the age of 16 and 19-year-old that knew anything, that was innocent, that would not come forward and grab that Hellcat. Anybody. I don't know what year model that Hellcat is, but I know 2 months ago I looked at a used one, and it was like a 2019 model, had a wrap package on it, and it was somewhere in the ballpark of $90,000. And that was cheap. They could sell that Hellcat. They could swap it in on another model. They could sell that Hellcat. There's ways around that for them to never know that they're the ones that claimed it. And I'm sure Mississippi Granny said, if someone is seen driving that Hellcat, people are going to know who told what happened. I'm sure if they contacted Ryan and said that right there, that Ryan would open his car garage and say, okay, pick you out any car in here. Ryan is known to have 100 cars in his garage at any time. I'm sure that he would work with somebody on that and understand that point. If they would rather have cash, I'm sure that he would hand them the cash. Aurora said, I guess the only thing would be if it didn't happen there, but somewhere else. I thought about that. But there was some adults at another campground just right up from them, and they said something at 12:30 caused an exit of cars at 12:30 to just leave from that campground. During the fight that was going on there, was she accidentally shoved off the cliff in the middle of this fight? Is that what they all were looking at? And then they all got scared and split up? Is the group guilty as a whole? I said I was not going to touch this case because so many other people were looking into it. I mean, it's like everybody on YouTube was doing her case. But I couldn't help myself. I went 10 days without saying anything about it. But there was people not asking the basic questions. And I've asked the Placer County Sheriff's Department the basic questions about who was the adults that rented this campground. Somebody had to rent this property on federal land. I have heard it say it was dark out there because it was against the rules for them to have the big fires and everything. All they could have was like the small fires and the small pits, and it was very dark out there. So they were trying to stick with the rules and the provisions and everything within the campsite rules. So I do know that there was rules laid out for them. So it wasn't like they were out there and nobody knew that they were out there. So I do know that there was campsite rules. So I do know, like any other campsite in a national forest, any other campsite in a state forest, it had to be rented to somebody. I made a video yesterday that showed that the campsite was normally rented for $29 a night. There was also a ranch right up from it that was the Prosser Family Ranch, and it would rent for like $143 to $193 a night. Was there adults that was renting the ranch? These are basic questions that I feel like needs answered. And I'm not getting those answers. Who was this campsite rented out to? And it had to be somebody 18 years of age or older, and there had to be a deposit put up. And I know this because I am a card holder within all of the national park systems. Hey, Cat's Eye. Right, so Aurora says all those people were leaving at the time her phone was turned off, even though she had been charging it in the car. Exactly. And also, the Sammy girl made the statement that she had called her at 12:36, and she almost slipped up and said that she was driving. If you go back and listen to what she says again, she puts herself in the passenger seat, but then as she continues to talk, she almost slips up and says that she was driving. I believe that her car was drove out of there at 12:30. But where did they drive it to? Did they park her car in a parking garage somewhere? And that's another thing about the depth. They keep saying the depth of this water. Oh, well, you know, her phone wouldn't ping. This is what the kids are saying. Her phone wouldn't ping if her car was way underwater. Well, wait a minute, because, you know, some of these underground parking garages are, you know, don't quote me at this, but, you know, they're pretty deep underground. Phones ping under there. Back when I was going through medic school, I could tell you how long it takes for a car to fill up with water, per second. I don't remember that information right off the top of my head. Sure, I could look it up. But it takes a few minutes. It doesn't happen within seconds unless the window's cracked. Especially in these brand new cars. Phones ding at the bottom of swimming pools. What exactly would be the cutoff depth for a phone to ping? I'm not sure if there is one, as long as it can get a clear signal. And that would be after the phone is drenched in water, after it finally cracks out, or what I call cracks out, from electrical shorts. And I just dropped my brand new iPhone in water 4 nights ago, and it did not miss a beat. The only thing that happened was when I went to charge it, it told me that it would not charge because the ports were wet. So I took my phone and I stuck it up into the slot of the air conditioner in my car, in the vent where the air was blowing out in the air conditioner, all the way home. And then when I got home, I wrapped it into a bag of instant rice, like the bowl-in bag. I just cut the top of the bowl-in bag of rice, and I dropped my phone down in that for about 2 hours, brought it in here, charged right up, didn't miss a beat. And I don't know how long it was kicked into the creek before I come back and found my phone in the creek. I can't tell you how long it had been laying there. It was a couple of hours before, that we had walked off, and then when I come back, the kids had been running around, and it wasn't my kids, by the way, but there have been kids and stuff running around our area and stuff. So I don't know how long it had been that my phone had been laying there in the water in the creek, but it had been underwater for more than a minute. Little Dev, her car was a 2013, and that article that I had just read about the OnStar selling your data, the first report that came out on that was a 2011 report, where they were selling it to individual companies so law enforcement could still have access to that. I went back as far as I could, the closest to the year date of her car. Right, Aurora. Why would you charge the phone only to then turn it off yourself? That doesn't make sense. And then nobody really missed her until the next day when they start showing up at Starbucks, and then they're like, oh, well, where's Kieli? Kieli, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right or not. It's I before the E. Kieli. Kylie, I'm from the South, so I know for sure that the boyfriend was 4 hours away with his dad. I don't think the boyfriend had anything to do with it, the Jagger kid. I think that we can safely say that he was where he was supposed to be. Oh, absolutely, Lil Dev. You would think with all the technology we have today, Ellie would know things. And I do. I think that they already know more than what they're telling us. And I think that they're letting a couple of these kids talk until they hang theirself. Why else would they let this girl stand there and talk while they're trying to have a presser and trying to divert these kids? And I very much think that she was the adult that they were talking about that was trying to make these teenagers just be quiet, not say anything. I don't think that it was a parent per se that they were talking about. I think that it was her. When they said that there was an adult that was trying to make these kids be quiet. I 100% believe that it's Sammy. Or Sammy and Megs. Sammy does not even follow her on social media, but yet when something, look, I want to call her Sammy Sue Brown because she has absolutely inserted herself into this investigation, just like Jody Sue Brown has inserted herself into Summer's case. That's who she reminds me of. And like I said, the kid does not have sense enough to understand that that car will be recovered somewhere. And when they can get to that black box, it will tell them every time that that car was unlocked, every time that that charger port was accessed, every time the windows went up and down, every time the car was, the key ignition was turned, everything. Every time the seat was adjusted. And it's going to bite her in the ass. And that jury will come up somewhere. And one thing, as old as I am, men does not like long chains. Men like 18, 20-inch chains. Only girls like chains that long. Men do not like thin chains either. And those chains look like they were all soldered together. And if you look, the big piece that is on the rope chain that's holding them all together is an old timepiece. It looks like maybe the face off of maybe a grandmother's old watch or something, maybe a watch facing that's soldered on there with it. That would be my guess, like maybe it was her grandmother's watch facing, an old gold watch facing or something, is what it looks like to me. But only a girl would want something like that. Men are not attracted to chains that long, unless it's simply to go pawn. And if that was the case, they would have none rolled up in a pawn shop. Aurora said, some things still feel weird with Jagger's role to me, though, like claiming Ellie wanted him to filter tips. Well, he's still kind of young, and I think what he was saying was like, hey, you know, I'm the boyfriend, and if y'all don't want to go to law enforcement, come to me, and I'll take them to law enforcement. That's maybe, I think, how he meant to come off. And things just kind of got out of his control. Maybe. Hey, Annette. Long time no see. It's good to see you. Hey, Tama. That's how I'm kind of hoping. Hey, Level. That's kind of how I'm hoping I'm taking Jagger. I certainly don't want to call his dad a liar and say, you know, well, even his dad's lying about his whereabouts. Right, Bob. I think that it was her ex-boyfriend instead of boyfriend. I think I misquoted that. I'm sure if he was at that party, law enforcement knows about it by now. And if they don't, I'm sure that they have already turned a warrant in to Snapchat and TikTok and everywhere else the pictures were being posted. And I think when they said yesterday that things would be turning more towards task force, what they were saying was, and this is just me reading in between the lines, that's fine, y'all don't want to come forward, then we're going to start investigating this case at this next turning point. And how things go from here, it's going to turn more towards our favor, how we want to run this investigation, and what happens from here is on you. Because when they start investigating things from a task force point of view, then charges normally come. And that may be why, Sammy's parents is letting her come forward to set the record straight today before this task force becomes a thing. Because once they decide to start pressing charges on people for interfering in an investigation, it's going to be too late for her. Because in my opinion, that's what they need to do, is start putting a few people in a box. And when they box up a few people, they might get to the truth about where this girl is at. Yeah, they've still not shown the picture of her even wearing the white hoodie, and I think it's because they promised that those pictures, the ones that come forward on their own, would be anonymous. And if they released the pictures after they promised they would be anonymous, then they would lose those kids' faith, and no more would come forward. On their own. Or, that's kind of how I took it as to why they were not releasing those pictures. Oh, I agree, Aurora, but I think that he was following Sammy Sue's lead on that and just didn't know any better. Well, little Dev, her mom said that she hasn't used her credit card. Well, little Dev says, has anyone thought she might have run off just to do music? Well, her mom said that she hasn't used her credit card. She hasn't used anything, and she did not touch any of the cash that she knew her mom and dad just had laying around the house. But if these kids do not come forward now, and they live with this a few years, or say this girl, comes up dead, her body's recovered, and they live with this a few years, they are going to run into substance abuse issues. Their lives are just going to just be in turmoil. This is not going to turn out good for any of these kids that hold this in, that does not come forward. It's ultimately going to ruin their lives. I would highly recommend that any adult that has any contact with these kids that have good sense, get them into counseling, get them to the authorities, and encourage them to tell what they know. Whatever happened couldn't have been good. If she was going to run off, why even call her mom at all, or text her mom at all at 12:15 and say, I'm going to be home in 15 minutes? If that was even her that texted her mom. And why the lying about what she was wearing? Why is Sammy lying about the black hoodie that she was wearing when she was really wearing a white hoodie? If she was with her and she was going back and forth to the car with her all these times, you telling me the girl could not tell the difference between black and white? If she was with her 15 minutes before the last time she disappeared, she couldn't tell that she was wearing white, not black? I mean, this girl she graduated really early from high school. She was in advanced classes. She was a musician. I mean, there's no signs that she would have ran away. It seems like she had life laid out for her. She was taking some time off from school. She told more than a couple of fibs, Annette. She told some flat out boogery lies. The way I understood it, she was going to take a little bit of time off school. Nobody has said exactly how long she was going to take off before starting college. I don't think anybody has said a specific amount of time, but she was going to take off a little time. Oh, and I was going to briefly touch on Brandy Neal and Michael Vaughn. I don't hardly cover that case either. And y'all know why. It's because things change from creator to creator. Um, every interview she does, it seems like something changes. And I don't watch this particular creator much, but I had woke up in the middle of the night the other night. I wasn't feeling good. I've started back my infusions for my lupus, and I had a headache. So anyway, I think her name is Purple, but she had done a interview with Brandy Neal and Brandy Neal's daughter, and it was a well-rounded interview, I guess you would say. And a question come up about non-stranger abduction. And Purple asked her, did she think that it could possibly be someone that they knew that had taken Monkey? And Brandy really didn't say yes or no, but the little girl spoke up and she said that that was something that she always worried about. And it kind of, Brandy acted like that struck her as kind of odd and strange. And she was like, really? And the little girl went on to explain. She was like, yeah, anytime I go to one of my friends' house that I've not been to before for flag practice, or after flag practice or whatever, she said, I always look for signs of them having little kids in the house. She said, I always have my guard up. And she said, it's just something that I do. I look around and see if there's toys in the floor, and Brandy acted like that bothered her a little bit. And I guess I could understand why. If my teenager was scared to the point to where every time she went to a friend's house that she was scoping their house out for small children's toys and stuff, that would bother me too. And I had heard about a splash pad, but I had never really heard about a park. And the little girl had said something about, yeah, I don't like cutting through that park anymore. She said, I have to cut through that park to get to school. So I had heard a couple of things in this interview that I hadn't really heard before. Well, after the little girl had explained about going into people's houses that they knew and looking for toys, small kids' toys on the floor, I just shut it off and I didn't really listen to any more. And then this morning I get up and Brandy Neal had done another interview. And now, by the grace of God, J.D. Huff tells him, oh, well, Michael was just that 1 in 300,000 that was a stranger abduction. I've not heard J.D. Huff say this, and neither has anybody else. This is just something else that Brandy Neal has decided to tell, just since her daughter has become paranoid about going into people's homes that they knew about a non-stranger abduction. So this is just another her taking control of a narrative, I believe, to make her child feel better. I'm really not sure how old the little girl was. She's a teenager. J.D. Huff is the police officer that's over their case out in Fruitland, Idaho, Tama. But y'all can go listen to that interview that she done, I believe it was 2 nights ago. Purple doesn't have a very big channel. She's got less subscribers than what I've got. But like I said, the interview was pretty well structured. It wasn't very long. It was just like maybe 20 or 30 minutes or so. Wasn't a very long interview. I do believe, in my opinion, and allegedly, Brandy was awfully giggly, and she sort of acted like she might have been smoking weed in the very beginning of the interview. And I don't want to make that accusation, but I think in the very beginning she said something about token. And I don't, I hate to even say that, but it just, that's how it struck me. And it would not even matter to me, except she is sitting there doing an interview with her teenage daughter about her missing child. If it was me and I was going to choose to do anything like that, it would not be right there with my 13, 14-year-old right up underneath me while we are doing an interview about her missing little brother. But check it out for yourself. Y'all know me. I am the person that always tells you, don't take my word for it. Check it out for yourself. Use your own judgment. And hopefully I misunderstood what she said about that. But I did not misunderstand what the little girl said about being scared to go into friends' homes, and how she's always looking around for small kids' toys when she knows that they do not have small kids. And she's paranoid about that. And then today when I wake up, and this was 2 or 3 nights ago, and then today when I wake up, I hear Brandy's new narrative about how it could not possibly be someone that they know. Michael was absolutely, without a doubt, the 1 in 300,000 that was the stranger abduction. And I believe that Harsh Reality done a video on that. So if you don't want to hunt down the whole video on Brandy spouting that, you can just jump over to Harsh's videos for today and look for the Brandy Neal 1 in 300,000. And he can break that down for you. But I thought, wow, it sure is odd that it was just a couple of nights ago, her kid was scared to go into people's homes that they knew, because there was no evidence showing that it wasn't somebody that they knew. And miraculously this morning now there is proof that it was a stranger abduction. Well, what proof is that? Because it has not been released to the public. I like Harsh. I mean, for the most part. I like to see people who do the research and not just jump in there and go off of what somebody else is saying. I do my research, and then generally what happens to me is these bigger creators usually steal, what I put out there. But that's okay, as long as it helps the case. I'm like, whatever. But I like to watch creators like myself that actually do the research. People that's putting out different stuff than what everybody else is putting out there. I don't like to hit channels that is just putting out the same thing the last channel put out, and the last channel put out, and the last channel put out, and the last channel put out. I want to hear something different. I want to hear what you can add new to the case. Even if it is just 2 short sentences that's different from the last thing that I heard. I want to hear something different. Right. And it's only a couple I watched that research. Me too. And the rest of them is just recycled and added on to, and jump channel to channel, and they'll get 5 minutes worth of information from this channel and 5 minutes worth of information from that channel, and so on, and then they run it all together. Very seldom do I write any of my stuff down, and maybe I should. I may have more subscribers if I wrote my stuff down and planned it out. But I don't. I've got my research, laid out on my phone, or what I want to talk about on one device, and then using my computer for another. And then I just wing it. And I just believe in talking to you guys like y'all are my friends and my family, because you are. I've never felt like I had to sit here and talk to you guys like I'm running a news broadcast. Exactly. When I was researching the GPS data on her car, I ran across something that was so very disturbing. You can track any kind of criminals, drug traffickers, car thieves, child molesters. You can see how close, or law enforcement can see how close RSOs are to like a school zone or to a church zone or whatever on most car GPS data, except for Volkswagens, and some Subarus, and And there was one other kind. There was Maseratis. It was just like 3 kinds of cars that could not track traffickers and registered offenders. And I thought, what was the odds of one of those being the car that Don and Candace Wells chose to buy? They chose to buy one of the 3 cars that law enforcement could not track dealers, traffickers, or registered offenders in. Is that ironic, or is that ironic? Deliberate. That's a good word in that. I like that. Deliberate. Or whoever purchased it for them. Because I still don't buy that after this many months, if a creditor was looking for Candace, that they could not find that car to repossess that car if they wanted it. I still believe with all my heart that that research that we done in the very beginning that showed that that car was paid off. I still believe that that car is paid off. Because y'all remember that property that I found months ago that said it was Wells Revocable Land Trust that was over in Washington County. It's just within a few minutes of Dandridge, Tennessee, where Candace has been spotted several times already. So if I can find that land where that house is at, so could creditors. The video is still in my video lineup. And I keep telling people it's there. And if they choose to ignore it or they choose not to, I still think it's only been viewed something like 680 something times, and there's 2,009 subscribers. And I've got nearly 10,000 lurkers. And yeah, there's people all over telling, where's Candace? Where's Candace? And I tell them on a daily basis that video is there. And it shows that land having a connection to South Carolina. And South Carolina was where Jose was living, where they had him housed. Whom, by the way, we still do not have a obituary or death certificate for. The only obituary there ever was a little write-up on Facebook. That's the only obituary there ever was. Well, Little Dev, again, there's as far as do I think DW is going to Utah for SA, there's another video in my lineup there that shows where there is a big investigation where Utah opened up a investigation from 30 years ago, or that's 30 years old, for ritualistic SA abuse that I very much believe is linked to Don Wells. And they say it crosses interstate lines into a couple of different states. And if you scroll through my videos, it has got like the Utah State Police arm badge on that particular video. And it come out about 6 weeks ago, I guess. And they're asking for people that may have been abused to please come forward. And so far that they've got like 6 or 7 people that's come forward in this case, and they're looking for more. And they put the newscast out in a couple of states, and Tennessee was one of the states that the newscast was put out in, looking for survivors of this ritualistic abuse. I think that if they do bring charges against Don Wells, that they are going to try and make it as harsh as they can so they can use it for leverage in Summer's case. I don't think that they will try and stick him with just a couple of years worth of charges. That they will try to make it so big and so horrendous that it will be like 20 years worth, and then they will offer him a smaller deal in Summer's case just to get answers to what happened to her. But there's some people that believes that Don was at work, and he may not have the answers that we need for Summer's case. Some people believe that Candy and Candy have the answers. And I believe that at least a Candace and a Jody and the man who owns the property where that gate is up at in the very back of Ben Hill Road, and Andy knows the answers. Don may know now what has occurred, but I do believe that I think the Brianna girl that come up dead in Knoxville that kidnapped her own niece or whatever away from the meth heads that was trying to sell her and was facing 20 years for kidnapping the little girl that they were trying to sell. I don't remember her last name right off. It was Brianna. I think she knew what happened, and she was the first one that come up dead in the line of people that died around the Summer Wells case. I believe that she knew what was going on too. Aurora says, that Val, did you see Mullen answer to Evil Exists about if no rehab, etc. meant D would be out and totally free October the 30th? Very weird wording. STH, like regarding these charges, yes, or STH similar. Yes, I've seen that. Yes, Brianna Tester, that was her name. And if y'all remember, Jody Sue was talking about there was another kid down the way that was being sold, or somebody was trying to sell it for meth. And we put a stop to that too. I don't remember the exact wording. And I think the only person that got caught was Brianna. But yeah, I think she knew what was up. And then she was the first one that died in the string of death that has followed in the Summer Wells saga. Hey, how are you? I will have to go back and find where Jody Sue said that about the other kid down the street that was being trafficked or for sale for meth or whatever. That was a long time ago when she said that. I'll have to go find it. See if I can find it. Because I do believe that was the link to Brianna. Can't prove that, but I do believe that was the link to Brianna. Yes, she was on Candace's Facebook friends. And y'all remember the video I put out about Grandis's girlfriend, that my Linda Bicondova. And I said the guy, that Daniel Huxley or whatever, that was attached to her, that was her son-in-law. He had a Florida address and he had a Wisconsin address. Well, in between that time and the time, it was 2020 to 2021 when Summer came up missing, he just so happened to have an address there in Tennessee. Right after Summer comes up missing, he loses that address in Tennessee and he's gone. And that woman, since I've been watching her, she has done changed her last name to Hannah. And still friends with Grandis and Candace. Well, some of her aliases that she has took as aliases, like the Celeste, I can't think of the last name right now. That was one of her girlfriends too. So she has took her girlfriends' names and used those names as her aliases, because I have looked into every one of those aliases. Every alias that they have ever used, I have looked into. And by the way, that woman is not in an old folks home either. So Dawn Wells just flat out lied about any of her exes being in an old folks home. And some of her aliases was her ex's kids even. I tell you what, it would be one thing for one of my exes to be using my name as an alias, but when you start dragging my kids and my kids' credit and criminal records down with you, that's when me and you would have a problem. Oh, and I have heard that the woman who wrote the sales receipt for Grandma's camper and said that she had bought the camper from Grandma. Lied. So she has committed forgery by writing that bill of sale. I have heard that Grandma has still got possession of her camper and she's living in it. So the woman who came forward with the bill of sale and stated that she bought the camper from Grandma did not tell the truth. So somebody is lying there. So either the woman committed forgery and she lied on a bill of sale, or somebody is lying for Grandis. One of the two. But you're right. That's their way of life. They don't care what's a little forgery when you've got, 2 missing kids on your hands, Doesn't matter at all. They are just liars and grifters. Alright, kids, I have got to go check on my friend that is over in the hospital with triple bypass surgery. And I have got to go find me some supper to eat. Feed my dog. Let my dog out. I just wanted to throw us live together. I know that y'all had not heard from me in a couple of days and all that good stuff. Hey, Ursa Bruin, how are you? Miss seeing you. But I will see you guys in a day or two. It's been great talking to you guys. And as I always say, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't even have a channel. Y'all are the ones that come here day after day to listen to what little bit I've got to say. And I appreciate you guys. And if y'all haven't already, think about joining the channel. Memberships are not but 99 cents a month. That's cheaper than you can buy a cup of coffee for. You can join through the community tab. 99 cents a month helps build the channel. That's the only thing that is done with the money. It helps with subscriptions. It helps with software for better videos and stuff. I have took down the Cash app, so the only 2 ways to support the channel is through membership and super chats and the thanks button. So I do appreciate any support that we can get for the channel. So alright, I love you guys something fierce. Take care of yourselves and love each other.